All right, it's showtime. Hi, folks. So why is understanding long-term care and how it may apply to you so important? To completely wrap your head around the answer to that question, you first have to understand what the state of affairs is in the U.S. when it comes to long-term care and where that may be leading us. Did you know that Medicaid, which is a joint health program for low-income individuals that is funded jointly by our federal and state governments, spent approximately $138.9 billion on long-term care services in 2021, which was an increase of $3.1 billion from the year before and around $9.1 billion since 2020. And then California, New York, and Pennsylvania, our very own, were the states with the highest long-term care expenditures. Also, since Medicaid accounted for roughly 7.28% or $728 billion of all federal outlays in 2021, that means that long-term care makes up roughly 20% of the federal Medicaid budget, and most likely a larger percentage of each state's Medicaid budget as well, since our federal government covers up to 60% of all nursing home residents and roughly 31% of all costs for long-term care services and support in each state. So, where is this all leading to? Well, some states have found that the cost of long-term care has got to be so burdensome on state budgets that they've actually created a new tax to fund it. In fact, in Washington state, legislators approved a public long-term care insurance program in 2019 that would be paid for by an annual payroll tax surcharge of 0.58% of each worker's wage. In return for that tax, each person who paid in would be eligible for a public long-term care insurance benefit of up to $36,500 per year, which will begin in 2025. However, there was one caveat, that they'd make a last-minute change to the law, which stated that the only way that residents could opt out of having to pay this tax is if they purchased private long-term care coverage by November 1st, 2021, which we actually announced before the date the first time we did this topic. Also, according to an article dated November 1st, 2021 on the Long-Term Care News website, there are currently 12 other states that are considering implementing a long-term care tax very similar to the one that was passed and went into effect in January 2022 in Washington state. Now, currently, PA is fortunately for us not on that list, but New Jersey is, and so is California, Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. But you can certainly see how it is possible for all of us to have to seriously consider private long-term care coverage in the not too distant future. And all of this is not even to mention that the Medicaid income and asset rules, if you're in need of public long-term care coverage, could definitely cause hardship to your spouse and your heirs under certain circumstances, which we will discuss in detail in a minute. It's a lot getting that out. But before we do that, I want to thank each of you for attending our webinar today. Our topic, as you know, is understanding long-term care and how it may apply to you. My name is Brian Dougherty of PLC Financial Solutions. I'm your host along with my beautiful, wonderful partner in business and life, Rachel Dougherty. Say hi, Rachel.
Hey, everybody.
Now, Rachel will be our moderator for it as always, and she will be handling all of your comments and questions as we go along. However, today we are super excited to introduce to you our very special co-host on it with us tonight. His name is Bailey Hornby. He is a regional sales director at OneAmerica Life Insurance Company and an expert in asset care-based long-term care solutions that we at PLC Financial Solutions look to when we are looking for answers when it comes to it. Bailey, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Hey, Brian, I'm doing great. Really happy to be on. Not only do I work for a company that sells long-term care products, but I have a lot of family history with dealing with long-term care claims. So it's a very passionate point in my history that I'm very excited to talk about today.
Well, I tell you, man, I've been looking forward to this for a while, ever since we talked about it. I can't thank you enough for spending this time with us and trying to do whatever you can to help us to wrap our heads around this, pretty important topic.
It is. Yep. Excited for it.
Awesome. Folks, I must tell you that I can't even say again how excited I am to be presenting this topic for you today. It's been quite a while now that long-term care has been of special interest to us because we feel like so many retirement plans can and have been derailed as a result of catastrophic long-term care events for so many people. And Pally just mentioned he had family personal history. I have had too, and so has Rachel, actually. So we all have at certain times. So we just think this is the best topic because of our personal experience. Now, before we get started, let's take care of some general housekeeping first. If the screen, one, is not big enough for you, you can click on the View Options drop down at the top right of your screen to make it larger. Also, you'll see that there are two boxes at the bottom of the screen, one called Chat, and it's for your comments, and another called Q&A, and that's for your questions. Please use them accordingly, and Rachel will respond to them in kind. Now, next, I'm sure that many of you have questions about this material we will be covering today, but since we have a good bit of material, especially with this topic, to cover, and only an hour to cover it, I'm going to ask you to put your comments and questions in those boxes below, or you can actually, this has been popular for folks the last several months that we've been doing it, you can actually email them to us at info@plcfs.com if that's easier to do. Sometimes people do that on their phone, I guess. They don't got to screw around with the screen or what have you. So, and at the end, we're definitely going to be staying for some extra time to cover as many of them as possible. However, if we don't cover yours, we'd be happy to answer it by either email or even a 15-minute Q&A phone call scheduled for another time, and Rachel will be posting a link for you to schedule that. Next thing, this webinar is being recorded and it will be sent to everyone who is attending tonight. So don't worry about missing anything. You're going to have plenty of time to check it out again at your convenience. Also, because we want to make sure that you're all paying attention, and because we also want to make sure you have some fun as well, before we answer any questions, we have a 6-question quiz for you at the end, as usual. And the first person to answer each question correctly inside the comment box will win a $10 gift card for each question answered to a store of their choice. So make sure you have your handy dandy notebook, right? Remember the handy dandy notebook? I used to say that. To jot down some brief notes related to some special bullet points. I'm when I do bullet points, to get that notebook out. Now, finally, it is my obligation as a fiduciary, my obligation as a financial advisor and a fiduciary, to inform you of our RIA's disclaimer statement, which is that our investment advisory services are offered through Fusion Capital Management, an SEC registered investment advisor, and we only transact business in states where we are properly registered or are excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Now, SEC registration is not an endorsement of the firm by the commission and does not mean that our advisors have attained a specific level of skill or ability. And most importantly, all investment strategies have a potential for profit or loss. So now that we got that over with, I have one for you as usual. What did the plate say to his friend? Tonight, dinner's on me. I got that one myself, Rach. The kids didn't give me that one. All right, I'm going to keep the day job, Bally, as you can see, right?
I liked it. Good
That's
humor.
what I was zingering once in a while. Okay, so, all right. Now, so how likely are you to need long-term care? Well, even though it can vary over time dramatically and continues to change over time, here are some statistics to consider. Bullet point right out of the gate, bullet point, get them notebooks out. Someone who's turning 65 today has almost a 70% chance of needing some type of care. 70%. Get them notebooks out. Someone who turns 65 today has almost a 70% chance of needing some type of long-term care services and support in their remaining years. Now, 53% of women and 47% of men will need long-term care in their lifetime. Women need long-term care, need care longer. It's roughly 3.7 years, and men roughly 2.2 years. While 1/3 of today's 65-year-olds may never need long-term care support, 20% will need it for longer than 5 years. And the average claim for Alzheimer's is like 8 years, right? Right, Bal? I mean,
yes, the average claim for Alzheimer's dementia is 8 years.
So, and Rachel, how long did your grandfather have Alzheimer's? Can you hear me? I'll tell you. Was it roughly like 15, 16, 17 years, something like that?
Yeah, it was a while. It was right around there. So
Long time.
And I'll add to that, we currently have a client on claim with Alzheimer's going into their 17th year of claim on the books.
Wow. So no stranger to that. I think most families have had incurred that. I had it with my grandmother. Hers was about 5 years.
Yep.
So, you know, the statistics are real, and roughly 70% of people, look, if I could go into casino and I had a 70% chance of going, or another one where I had, say, a 50-50 chance, which one do you think I'm going to go in? Going in the 70%, right? But that's a good thing. If I got a 70% chance of getting mugged, I'm going in the other one. Okay, so let's look at some other facts as it relates to the types of elderly care that are available today. The first is called home-based care. Now that's where that's just basically homemaker services. Nationally, the median daily rate charged for a non-certified but licensed home care agency for homemaker services is $141 a day. Isn't that what it says? A day. Now, homemaker services include housekeeping, cooking, running errands, those types of things. Then there's home health aid services. Nationally, the median daily rate charged for a non-certified but licensed home care provider for home health aid services is $144 a day. And those types of services, that includes when people have issues with the activities of daily living, which is basically what it would be if they were to have a long-term care claim, but not necessarily medical care. Then there's also community-based care, adult daycare. Nationally, the median daily rate charged for adult daycare, which provides therapeutic, social, and other support services in a community-based setting, is $75 a day. And then, of course, there's facility-based care, assisted living facilities. Nationally, the median rate for a private one-bedroom unit in an assisted living facility is $4,050, which is an average annual cost of about $48,600. And these rates exclude one-time community or entrance fees. Bullet point. This is the big one. Nursing homes nationally. The median annual rate for a single occupant private room is $102,200 per year, or $8,517 a month. The median annual rate for a semi-private room is $90,155. But let's stick with the bullet point of a single occupant private room is $102,200. $102,200. Keep notes. Yeah. So in considering the average length of stay in a nursing home is about 2.5 years, the total cost of an average stay today is about $225,000 to $255,000. It's a lot of money. Now, for many, this expense could easily consume a lifetime of savings. Others may not be able to cover the cost at all. Also, a Genworth study that provided these statistics also tracked the historical trends of these costs, which in general tend to increase each year. Based on these historical trends, it's possible that the cost of the most expensive levels of long-term care in 15 years or so will be roughly 1.5 times what they are today. So, if someone who is in need of long-term care services today is either unconfident that they will be able to afford the cost of long-term care, or originally thought that they could, but starts to think that they are going to run out of money as a result of their needs, then they'll need to file a claim with Medicaid. And then they'll need to start playing by Medicaid rules. And the first rule that most people will be introduced to is called the spend down rule. And there are 2 main clauses in their rules that explain or define how this works. Medicaid long-term care spend down rule, clause 1, actually has 2 parts to it. And it goes like this. Part 1, since Medicaid is the largest public source of funding for long-term care in the United States, and is funded and administered through federal and state efforts, contrary to many people's belief, when it comes to long-term care, Medicaid is not available to everyone who needs long-term care services. That's right in there. And it's available only to certain low-income individuals and families who fit into particular eligibility groups. Those who apply to this Medicaid, for payment of long-term care services must meet both the financial and functional eligibility criteria to qualify. The financial criteria to qualify often requires recipients to spend down their assets to become what Medicaid considers to be sufficiently needy. That's part 1. Now, part 2 does, however, mention that there are rules that allow preserving assets for healthy spouses to prevent spousal impoverishment, which we'll discuss in a few minutes as well. Now, as you can see, folks, Medicaid does not just look at things that as they relate to the individual in need when it comes to who's responsible to pay these needed services. They look at it as a family responsibility. And we're going to dig into that. Any thoughts on this, Val?
So not on this, but specifically on the cost of long-term care, you show different price ranges. You also have to consider the cost to your family. Are you taking away from your child's family or their career to provide the care for you if you don't have a plan in place? How is that gonna change their lives, their career? How is that gonna change their relationship with their own kids? So not only do you have to consider the money cost of long-term care, it's also the family cost and the family dynamic of how that changes.
No, absolutely. The trickle down effect can devastate a family for generations, like really. So what does it take for Medicaid to consider you medically needy? Well, you must meet 3 criteria. The first is you must belong to a group that your state has defined as a Medicaid eligible group, categorically needy or medically needy, for example. Second, you must have a medical or functional need, an impairment that limits your ability to perform activities of daily living, ADLs, they're called. They call them, as require either institutionalized care or the level of care given in an institution, but are able to receive it in the home and or in the community. And third, your income and assets must be at or below specified levels. These levels vary depending on which eligibility group you're in and where the long-term care is received, in the home, the community, or in a nursing facility. However, regardless of these variables, the financial requirements that apply to Medicaid coverage for long-term care services are strict and may subject individuals to divert the bulk of their income to the cost of their care and to spend down the majority of their assets to the point of being considered impoverished. Medicaid considers this to be a process of what they call self-impoverishment. I don't like the sound of that. I'll tell you that. I always say that, but I just don't like the sound of that. Now, I don't know, but those 2 words in combination just scare the heck out of me. Your thoughts, pal?
Yeah, impoverished is not a friendly term there. The other thing to consider is if you do go through Medicaid, you have little to no say in what type of care and where the care is provided. So if your kids live hours away from you and you'd rather receive care near them, you don't have a say in that. So that's something to consider, is you want to keep the choices to yourself with a private insurance versus letting the government dictate where and when you receive care.
Absolutely. Rachel had that with her grandmother. And when her assets ran out, she was in a pretty nice place, a private place. They had to move her to a Medicaid cover place. It was actually pretty nice, but it was much farther away.
Yeah, well, she got lucky though, because there's a lot of people you end up in, state-run places, not all of them. She got really lucky. The place where she was really nice, actually, for a state-run place.
Yeah.
But a lot of them
proximity that was
quality.
Yeah, that was really the issue, the proximity.
Yeah.
But my grandmother did not get lucky. She was in a place, I mean, you walked into that, the odor was terrible. I
would encourage people to just Google Medicaid facilities or state-run facilities, and you'll see what we're talking about as far as the level of care and the quality in those facilities.
Yeah. In fact, I was just a kid, but when they put her in there, I never saw her again. It was so far away. And, it was just, I was probably like around 10, 11 years old. And it was so far that we couldn't make it out too much. I think I did go once, and that's how I knew about, the odor of the place. But it was kind of dark, the lighting. It was like something in a movie. It was crazy. So what is the process of what Medicaid calls spend down? Well, it's simply the process of depleting private or personal resources in order to become eligible for Medicaid. Thus, entering a nursing home or obtaining long-term care services by initially paying the cost out of pocket until you essentially run out of money. Then you can apply for Medicaid once you've depleted all your resources to the point of meeting the Medicaid eligibility requirements, which will place you and your spouse at the government poverty level. As you can see, folks, this is some serious stuff and should be given deep consideration far in advance in order to avoid these circumstances as much as possible. So now let's look at clause 2 of the Medicaid spend down rules. It breaks down the bottom line when it comes to who Medicaid long-term care benefits are intended for in 3 simple sentences. 1, it's for those with low income. 2, it's for those who incur catastrophic medical expenditures. And 3, it's for those with minimum assets. Now, in short, this means that to be eligible, recipients must meet 3 basic qualifications. Their income, both individually and the spouse as well, cannot exceed certain limits. Their medical expenses have to be beyond their ability to pay for. And finally, they have to have spent down their assets on their medical / long-term care needs to the point of self-impoverishment, which Medicaid clearly defines. Okay, let's get a little more granular when it comes to the details related to the income and asset limits for both Medicaid applicants and their non-applicant spouses, also referred to by Medicaid as the community spouse. That's a common word you'll hear when you're reading the Medicaid rules. So these are the Medicaid long-term care income rules for the applicant spouse. That's the person going into the facility or who's in need of the long-term care services. 1, you must divert the bulk of your income to the cost of your care. 2, in most states, your income must be at or lower than 300% of the supplemental security income limit to qualify. Now, what is the supplemental security income limit? Income limit. Now, bullet point, write it down. Come on, jot it down. Bullet point. The supplemental security income limit is currently for 2023 $914 a month. Now, 300% of that is 3 times $914, which is $2,742 a month. You can't exceed that. They will allow you to keep up to that, but not go above it. Now, it's a little bit convoluted how that works. I'm going to explain it in a little bit, but write that down. The supplemental security income limit is currently $914 a month times 3, which is $2,742. Now, 3, you must contribute almost all available income toward the cost of care for Medicaid to pay the rest. Now, 4, you will only be permitted to retain a nominal, and I mean nominal, and I'm talking about the applicant, not the spouse here. You only be able to retain a nominal amount of income. And they actually define it like this. That amount is either such as $30 or $50 each a month. So it's somewhere between $30 and $50. That's the only amount the applicant can actually keep to themselves a month. As you can see, these income rules are pretty strict, especially for the applicant spouse, and don't leave much for anything for anyone else, for anything else. Now, What types of income does Medicaid count towards eligibility? In other words, what are the types of income that must go towards paying for your medical needs? Well, it covers actually most incomes. So wages, certain deductions are allowed, but it's mainly the wages. I don't know who's going to have wages when they're applying for Medicaid, but somehow or another. Of course, investment interest, investment income, that counts interest and dividends from savings and investments, Social Security benefits, veterans benefits, pensions, IRA income, and rental income. Now that's all income that's in the applicant spouse's name. Okay, all needs to go towards the care, the cost of care, with the exception of $30 to $50. What's your thoughts on that, Val? Pretty much
It's just
talks for
scary to
itself,
see.
right?
Yeah, it's scary to talk about. You worked your whole life of building up those assets, those investments, and now with this program, they're actually working against your eligibility. So it's just eye-opening to see this government program want to see your income limits that low.
That low, absolutely. Now, what is the income that is not counted towards eligibility? When you look at these, you can pretty much understand right away why they aren't counted. First is temporary aid to needy families, a program that replaced aid to families with dependent children. Okay, so it's a needy family. They're not going to take that. Supplemental security income. That's like Social Security for people who haven't paid in. But it's currently the max benefit, and I know this because my nephew gets it. He's disabled, right? Is $914 a month. So they don't touch that. Food stamps. They don't touch that. Wow, wow. Let you keep the food stamps. Thank goodness. Low income home energy assistance programs benefits. Well, I hope not, for crying out loud. It's going towards your electric bill, or what's that, like LIHEAP or something like that? Come on. Yeah, a program that helps pay the heating and cooling bills for low income and elderly people. Foster care payments, certain housing or utility subsidies. And so, as you can see, if they did count this income, they would pretty much be adding insult to injury. So I don't think there are any surprises that this isn't counted. You agree with that, Val?
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. So not that it's funny at all. I'm just trying to make a little bit of lightheartedness to it because it's really just so really serious. So they were the income rules for the applicant spouse. Now let's look at the rules for the non-applicant spouse. This is where it starts to get interesting. Okay. Now, federal law permits the community spouse. It's either the non-applicant spouse they call him or her, or the community spouse. Same thing. To maintain a higher income for support, which they call and they use an acronym for it. They call it the minimum monthly maintenance needs allowance, the MMMNA. Second, bullet point number 4. Come on, write it down. Surprised them with that one. Jumped out of nowhere with that. 2023, the community spouse can keep at least minimum $2,289 in monthly income, or up to a maximum of $3,715.50 at the state's option. Essentially, between 200% and 300% of the federal poverty level. And they consider that supplemental security income the poverty level at $914 a month. Now, the reason they will extend out to that maximum of $3,715.50 is they will allow roughly $600 or $700 additional dollars to go. It depends on what the utilities are at their home. That's why they'll extend it from 2,200. Well, it's actually up to what, another 1,500 or something, depending on what the utilities are at your home. Some states cost of living's higher, like New York starts at it just starts and stays at the 37.50. So write that down. In 2013, community spouses can keep anywhere between $2,289 a month and $3,715.50 a month. 3, any income the community spouse receives in their own name, Social Security, pensions, or dividend income, for example, may be retained fully by the community spouse. So in other words, say they have a Social Security benefit that's $1,500, and then their spouse has another $1,500. Well, they're going to allow them to take $789 away from the applicant spouse's benefit that would have been going towards care, to add that to their $1,500 to get them to the $2,289. But if they have a benefit of, say, $3,000 of their own, and they don't need to take any from the applicant spouse, then they're good to go. They're not going to touch their income. It's really only when you got one real breadwinner, and that breadwinner was the person that needed to be the applicant, that you got real issues. So now number 3. 4. No portion of the community spouse's own income is required to be assigned to Medicaid or diverted to cover the cost of care for the institutionalized spouse. Well, I basically said that already. So that covers all the income rules for both the applicant and the non-applicant spouse. Now let's look at the details related to both of them as it pertains to the assets. Before we do, though, your thoughts on this, pal?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear now, going through these points, that this is for low income families or for when families fully deplete all their assets and income. So if you're trying to preserve your income and your assets, this program isn't for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially if there was one main breadwinner who ended up being the applicant, that's when it really hits hard. Really.
Yeah, so generational, wealth or taking care of your kids is a concern. This program is not for you.
And this was exactly what the situation was with your grandparents, right, Rach?
Yeah, absolutely.
Her grandfather was president of a vice president of a bank. Her mother was a stay-home mom, right? And they spend down rules, everything applied.
Mhm.
He retired in 78 with like $800,000. So what would that be worth today? Yeah, probably a couple million, right? So, and after how long was it? About 20 some years when that money ran out? Then your mother and your grandma had to go to the Medicaid facility. It was a while.
Yeah, it took a while, but yeah, by that time.
It was about
Yeah.
2 years she lived past the assets, and that's where it went, which is actually not bad. They conserved well. Okay, here are the rules for Medicaid long-term care spend down on assets. All money and any property that can be valued and turned into cash is a countable asset unless it is specifically exempt. Well, isn't that good, right? So if the value of total countable assets exceeds the Medicaid eligibility limit, the applicant must spend down these assets to the limit before Medicaid assistance is available. We're going to talk about what those limits are. Now, finally, certain allowances are made for married couples that enable a community spouse to retain countable assets up to a certain limit, and we'll discuss those limits in a minute. So, what exactly is Medicaid's asset/resource requirement or limit for the applicant spouse? Well, brace yourself for this one because it is bare bones. They are not permitted, the applicant spouse, to have any more than $2,000, these are the exact words, or $3,000 in countable assets to be eligible for assistance. 2,000 or 3,000. So it's 3,000 max. That's what you got to spend down to. Now, I'm still trying to figure out whether which it is 2,000 or 3,000 and how they determine it, but they don't actually say that. But either way, it's like splitting hairs when someone gets down that low in assets and with an allowable income limit of only $30 to $50 a month, I don't think that these assets will be lasting very long anyway. Wow. I mean, that is it in a nutshell, right, Val? I mean,
yeah, exactly. You work your whole life to build up these assets and investments, and now at this point in your life, a very vulnerable point in your life, they're saying that you can only keep 2,000 to 3,000 in assets. It's just a real gut punch when you see that after working your whole life to build those up.
And the one thing about it that I think, maybe a disclaimer to it is, if you plan in advance, you could circumvent this to a certain degree, wouldn't you agree?
You can, yeah. I would say it's complicated, but there is a route to circumvent this.
Absolutely. So, you're going to pay your fair share, but if you planned in advance, there could be much better terms for your family, especially, and your heirs. Okay, so here are what Medicaid considers countable or non-exempt assets. Again, meaning that these types of assets must be used to spend down on an applicant's medical needs. Also, there seems to be no surprises on this list either. First is cash. Second, checkings and savings accounts. Third, certificates of deposits and money market accounts. Next, stocks, mutual funds, bonds, and other investment holdings. IRAs, KIOs, and other retirement funds, all the different types of retirement funds, basically. And non-resident property. So resident property is a little different. So here are the non-countable or exempt assets. As you can see, they're going to leave also the same situation, no stone unturned here either. This is a thorough list, Primary residence is exempted. A Medicaid long-term care applicant's principal home is exempt as long as the equity value in the home is less than $500,000 or up in some cases as high as $750,000 at the state's option. Now, the exempt value of the primary residence is unlimited if the applicant has certain family members living there, such as a spouse, a child or children under age 21, or a blind or permanently disabled child. Now, one car of any value is exempt if it's used by a household member. Household belongings, including furniture, appliances, and other similar types of items. Personal possessions, including like jewelry, clothing, and similar items. This is where it really splits hairs. I mean, this is even a little complicated to understand. Burial contracts, irrevocable, with a value of $5,500 or less, and for revocable contracts with a value of $1,500 or less. think these are a little outdated too, because I mean, I think these things cost a lot more than that
I'd agree. Yeah.
these days.
Yeah.
You know, however, allotted values for the burial contracts are actually up to each state individually. In many states, the value of the burial contract must be reduced by the cash value of any life insurance policy. I mean, man, they're not leaving anything, any stone unturned. Burial plots, they're leaving that alone. Well, thank goodness. For the applicant and immediate family, includes the purchase or prepayment of the following items: grave site, opening and closing a grave site, cremation urn, casket, outer burial container, headstone, or market. Do you really got to name all that stuff? Crazy. And finally, the cash value of life insurance policy is exempt as long as it doesn't exceed $1,500 or $3,000 in value. Come on, man. So you're basically getting anywhere, say, up to $3,000 of a cash value life insurance policy.
Right.
So
pretty much anything that's exempt is shelter, transportation, and being able to pass away.
Exactly. It pretty much, Medicaid just, I mean, you know, they probably just couldn't, you know, some of this stuff like, how could you face yourself taking somebody's burial space away from them?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and selling it.
Yeah.
So they're just so granular, it's just not even funny. All right, now let's talk about the spousal rules as it pertains to assets. This gets interesting. The community spouses can retain half or more of the couple's combined assets, subject to state and federal minimum and maximum limits. So you're talking about joint assets here. Joint assets are not protected. You know, like a lot of times they are. Like if it's they can't sue you for your house if your husband and wife are both on it. If only one of you are getting sued, that's not the case here. Bullet point 5. Bullet point 5. Number 2 here. All states must allow the community spouse to keep all countable assets up to a certain minimum, which is in 2023, $29,724. They have to let the community spouse keep that. $29,724. That, how long is that going to last? You know, my average client might have about 250,000 in assets. They're going to let the community spouse keep 29,000 minimum. Now, they can keep up to half. Half is the most they can keep. But that's only up to a maximum of $148,620 in 2023. These numbers generally go up a little every year. So if you got, let's just call it 300,000, right? They're going to allow the community, or let's call that 148,620 times 2. You have $297,240. The community spouse could keep up to 50% of that, which is $148,620. As it goes down and gets lower, the percentage that they can keep gets high. Okay. Now, so that's the bullet point, that the community spouse can keep somewhere between $29,724 and $148,620. That's your bullet point. 3, a few states allow the community spouse to keep up to this full maximum amount, regardless of whether it is more than half of a couple's combined countable assets. Lucky people in that state, right? Again, going back to what you were, this common theme, right, Val? But now we're talking assets here.
Bare bones. That's all I keep thinking of. Bare bones assets, bare bones income for a government program.
And let's say a community spouse has health problems or things like that, but they're not long-term care related. And they got $148,000 now. Say they were worth 300 before, right? Or, say they were worth 500. Well, you got to spend all the way down to get to 148,000. That's the max. So, man, that could be a hardship, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So as it turns out, what Medicaid considers countable and non-countable assets when you're alive is different than when you're dead. That's because after you passed away, they have something called a state recovery. And it is a process that they use to be able to recover more assets than they could when a person was alive, which means that both exempt and non-countable assets, while a recipient was living, are not necessarily protected in the future because upon their death, Medicaid reserves the right to take from the estate the amount it paid for their care while they were alive. Now let's talk a little bit about those rules. So when it comes to the state recovery, here are the rules and the procedures. Recovery of assets from an estate may be made after the death of an unmarried Medicaid recipient, after the death of the surviving spouse, when the Medicaid recipient has no surviving children under age 21, and when the Medicaid recipient has no surviving children of any age who are blind or totally disabled. But what about the ones that aren't? Right? Nothing goes to them. Basically, this process was created to ensure that Medicaid gets every single dollar it can get from your estate once you and your dependents are gone, which, given the cost of long-term care, is not really something that you can blame them for really doing. However, if you're interested in leaving a legacy of any type to your children or heirs, it definitely makes sense to plan in advance to do so. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, now that we've discussed most of the challenges when it comes to long-term care and how our state government have incentivized us to do something about it, now let's discuss some of the solutions that I have come across that I find to be most helpful when it comes to it. Here are the most popular types of long-term care solutions for you to consider and why. The first is just standard long-term care policy. And this is the type of policy that most people know about, where you pay X amount per year and you're guaranteed a certain benefit amount per month for a predetermined length of time. And we'll look at how this plays out and how the pros and cons of this type of solution is in a minute. Just basic standard long-term care. Last bullet point. Bullet point 6. Come on, get those notebooks out. These next three are the current alternative long-term care solutions that are available today. The alternative to standard long-term care policies. The first is what they call long-term care / life insurance, a long-term care / life insurance hybrid policy. Now, this is a combination of both long-term care coverage and life insurance. It will also allow you to pay a certain amount per year for a predetermined amount of long-term care benefit every month, but it also will allow your beneficiaries to receive a lump sum payment if you don't ever use the policy, or if you only collect from it partially. I personally think that this is attractive because many people don't like the fact that when you pay into a standard long-term care policy, if you pass away prior to using it, then your beneficiaries don't receive anything. So it seems like you wasted your money on it over many years. We'll also take a deeper look at how this works and at the pros and cons of this type of solution. Thoughts? Throw something in on that, Bal? This is something,
Yeah.
now we're getting into your wheelhouse, right?
That's right. So my blood's flowing even more here. So standard long-term care policies, they're referred to as use it or lose it policies. Just like Brian said, you pay all these premiums throughout your life. If you do not need to go on claim for long-term care, your beneficiaries get nothing when you pass away. With these hybrid, or they're also called asset-based policies, if you don't need to go on claim, your beneficiary will get a tax-free death benefit upon your death. So we call that the live, quit, or die benefit. If you live and go on claim, benefits are paid out. If you decide to quit the policy, you can access cash value, or if you pass away, if you die, a tax-free death benefit is paid out. So it's very different from a standard or traditional long-term care policy.
Absolutely. The number one thing that I've heard from all the clients I have that have had long-term care, and the biggest drawback was use it or lose it.
Yep.
So these hybrids, I kind of like, I kind of refer to them as the cutting edge long-term care, solutions. They've solved a lot of these problems, that the original, concept just didn't solve. And you kind of try to work on getting your cake and eat it too, right?
Yeah, and the main other point I like to make is that these hybrid policies, they have guaranteed premiums and benefits, where the standard or traditional long-term care policies, they don't lock in your premiums even when it's an in-force policy. I just got an email today from a client that I've done business with that she had a letter come in saying that her premium is going to increase by 40% if she wants the same coverage. So, that's a scary thought, that the closer you get to going on claim, the higher your premiums could get. With the hybrid policies, they're fully locked in the year that you purchase them.
100% guaranteed at every level. And that, I've already replaced a couple of these standards with this just on that, because I had the same exact thing, a client 60% after 10 years of paying the same premium. And then in that letter, it also said it would go up every year then.
Absolutely. Only the one that I just got today only locked it into 2025. After that, they're open to more rate increases on their premiums for the same coverage that they've been paying into all these years.
Yeah, absolutely. And now this next long-term, Brit, is a long-term care / annuity insurance hybrid policy. Now, this hybrid solution works very close to the same as the long-term care / life insurance solution, except that it's usually funded using either cash or non-qualified assets. Can be sometimes qualified assets, but only up to a certain percentage of those assets, because of the fact that most people are going to end up having to pay RMDs in the future on that. And you really can't take RMDs from these types of plans because that money's for long-term care. Now, once the funds are in the annuity, then a long-term care rider is added to it that will provide X amount of long-term care benefits over a certain period of time after the base principal assets are used up first for the long-term care. This is usually used when an applicant has more substantial health issues and can't qualify for a long-term care / life policy. Can you talk about that a little, Bal?
Yeah, absolutely. So with OneAmerica, the life-based hybrid policy, we can underwrite up to age 80. And there's a little bit more underwriting to it. You might require paramed or APS reports. With the annuity hybrid policy, we can go up to age 87, and it's just a phone call for underwriting. So we can underwrite more medical history and go up to an older age. And the other great thing is there's many tax advantages, especially when you use non-qualified assets to fund these policies, like a non-qualified annuity or life insurance.
Absolutely. Because now the benefit becomes tax-free. If you were to take it out of your annuity to pay for these things, it wouldn't be. You'd have to pay capital gains or what have you.
Yeah, so if a client has a non-qualified annuity and it has built up a lot of gains over the years, they can 1035 that into the annuity hybrid policy. And as long as they use that hybrid policy for long-term care, all benefits are tax-free. So you're turning taxable gains in that current annuity into tax-free long-term care benefits with a product with OneAmerica.
Absolutely. That was part of that law change a few years back, right?
Yeah, it was called the Pension Protection Act. I know when people hear Pension Protection Act, they don't think it has anything to do with long-term care, but they snuck something in saying that we can turn non-qualified gains into tax-free long-term care benefits using the annuity hybrid policy.
Major bonus, major bonus. And only dedicated to long-term care services because they want people to start saving for them.
They know it's an issue. I mean, between the Washington payroll tax, between pushing through the Pension Protection Act, the Secure Act 2.0, they know long-term care is a problem in the country, and they're working on certain loopholes to incentivize people with these type of products.
Absolutely. So, and the final one is something that's a little, it's a little more specific, a little more niche, as you might say. It's called a Medicaid compliant annuity, which allows a Medicaid applicant to lower his or her countable assets down enough to meet the Medicaid's asset limits, which is between $2,000 and $3,000, like we said. By converting those assets into an income source that can then be used towards the Medicaid applicant, or in some cases, the non-applicant spouse's income limit rules. So because they're so stringent on those asset rules for an applicant spouse, you only let them keep, say, $2-3 grand. Someone has, but if they're going to allow them to have $2,742, you could convert, at least to pay towards care, even for that matter, or to divert over to the non-applicant spouse if they don't have much income, right? You could convert assets into income, and then those assets won't count anymore in the asset category. They'll count in the income category, which is more generous. So that's how that works. So thoughts, anything on that? I know that's kind of a little bit out of your wheelhouse, but we talked about it. I know you know a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's really just like you said, is the main point is turning the asset and from the asset category into the income category, which is less stringent. That's the main focus of Medicaid annuities. Is just moving money around to get a little bit more out of it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's look at the pros and cons when it comes to these. So starting with the standard long-term care policy. Like I said before, you will pay X amount per year and you are guaranteed a certain benefit amount per month for a predetermined length of time. For example, I have a client who had these types of policies before we met, and they were paying roughly $3,000 a year each. And and had they needed to use it, they would have received right around $5,000 a month for 3 years for each of them toward their long-term care expenses before the policy ended. However, if they had passed away before ever using the policy, it would have become null and void, and they would have ended up spending the money on it just for the peace of mind that they got to enjoy while they were still alive. Now, the reason we ended up reviewing their policy, it was last year actually, is because out of nowhere, they got a notice in the mail saying they're, after 8 years it was, of paying on them, and their premiums were, this particular one was increased 44% starting on the anniversary date. The wife's policy alone was currently costing $120 a month, so it was going to $173 a month, not to mention that it was likely that they were going to continue to increase as they got older and closer to needing it. So let's look at the pros and cons for the standard long-term care policy. Pros: very affordable at first. The monthly benefit amount is definitely good compared to what the cost is. They usually qualify for state partnership programs, which we didn't get into. I actually removed that slide, but maybe next time we'll talk about that. Pays for a home health care. It will pay home health care, assisted care, and nursing home care. Premiums can be tax deductible if you're still itemizing. Anything over 10% of AGI, benefits are non-taxable. So cons, the premiums are susceptible to increases indefinitely. The benefit periods are finite. You could need more care than they will pay for, and could end up needing the Medicaid program at some point anyway. And if you die, you never get anything for your money except the peace of mind that you had while you had it. So there's a couple little details right there. Anything to add or?
Not really. The main takeaways are, it is more affordable, but the cons are it's use it or lose it, and there's no guarantees on the premium staying the same. I don't really know of a product that the premiums didn't go up the older the client got. So some insurance is better than nothing. So it is still a great option for clients. There just might be some other solutions to consider as well.
Absolutely. A lot of people just don't know there are other alternatives.
Right.
All right. Now let's look at the long-term care life insurance hybrid solution. Premiums can be paid periodically or at a lump sum single premium. So you can pay it monthly or you can pay it one lump sum. Benefits can, now that when you do that monthly, usually it's up to age 95, right?
That's correct. Yep. So they pay until the oldest individual on the policy turns 95.
Okay. Benefits can be either a certain period over a certain period of time or over a lifetime, depending on how you set it up. So it has a death benefit that will return all or most of the premium to your beneficiaries when you die, tax-free. You mentioned that already. Policies are usually owned jointly with the life insurance, paying out when the second insured passes away. Both insured can receive benefits of the same amount for either at the same period of time or for a lifetime at the same period of time if needed. That was the stunning thing about that. So explain that a little.
Yeah, so OneAmerica is very unique. We're the only company out there that can provide joint policies, so a second to die life insurance policy with a long-term care rider that provides benefits for lifetime. It doesn't matter if you're on claim for 2 months, 2 years, or 12 years, you're gonna receive that same monthly benefit for as long as you need it. You can go on and off claim as many times as you need to. Both can go on claim at the same time and each receive their monthly benefit. And it is a truly lifetime unlimited policy there. And the joint aspect is more cost efficient than buying 2 individual policies. So that's the attractive point of joint policies. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck doing a joint second to die policy compared to 2 individual policies.
Absolutely. Some quick pros and cons. The premium is fixed amount for life that can be paid either monthly, quarterly, biannually, or annually, or in a single lump sum. Benefits can be either for a set period of time or for a lifetime. It pays for just about all types of elder care expenses like home health care, assisted care, nursing home care, hospice, and adult daycare. All or most of the premiums can be returned to the beneficiaries upon death if the long-term care policy is never used. Full benefits can be paid to both insured at the same time indefinitely, and the long-term care portion of the premium is tax deductible, anything over 10% of AGI. Also, all benefits are non-taxable, which is great. Now, cons. Costs roughly 2.5 times more for lifetime benefits than standard finite long-term care plans cost. Costs roughly 1.5 times more for non-lifetime benefits than the standard long-term care does. And that's because they have the potential to pay out for your entire life versus 2 or 3 years. Next,
and
let's look at
one point that, especially when you're going to do a single pay for those type of policies, those numbers that you just said 2 times or 1.5 times, that's scary. But when you know that the full premium is going to be paid to your beneficiaries upon death if you don't need it. It's a wash. So if you put in $100,000 into the policy, we can usually get you anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 tax-free death benefit. So no matter what, you're not losing money. If anything, you're gaining money, even if you don't need to utilize the lifetime long-term care benefit.
Yeah, it might not be fair to say costs. It might be fair to say outlay.
Yes.
More so than that. It's the other cost, the standard cost. But this is kind of more of an outlay because of the return coming back.
We're just repositioning assets to receive it at a different time. We're not paying anything forward. We're repositioning the asset.
And also when you count the tax savings.
That's right.
Wow. So you add that to it. So yeah.
Especially for business owners.
Fair. The
Even
outlay.
For business owners.
Yeah. Now, for the long-term care annuity insurance hybrid, pros and cons for that, premiums are fixed amount, either periodically or in lump sum. Benefits can be paid either over a set period of time or a lifetime, same as the other. It pays for most types of elder care, same home health care, assisted care, nursing home care, hospice, and adult day care. All or most of the premiums can be returned to the beneficiaries upon death if the policy is never used. Full benefits can be paid to both insured at the same time indefinitely. And the long-term care portion of the premium is tax deductible. Again, for any amount that exceeds 10% of AGI. Base benefit is tax-free if spent on long-term care expenses based on the Pension Protection Act of 2006, like we talked about. And all the long-term care rider benefits are non-taxable. The one con, the outlay is roughly 8 to 10% more than the long-term care life plan would be. The outlay. Okay. Finally, the last solution is not a solution made to ensure the cost of long-term care expenses directly. Rather, it is for someone who, for whatever reason, did not or could not plan in advance for them to be covered by long-term care insurance and now is faced with needing their long-term care expenses to be paid, at least partially, by Medicaid. It was created for them to be able to avoid having to spend down the lion's share, all but $3,000 of their assets in order to meet Medicaid's long-term care qualification. Of course, we're talking about the Medicaid annuity. So it's called the Medicaid compliant annuity, and it allows Medicaid the Medicaid applicant to reduce some or all, depending on how much they have of their countable assets, thus allowing them to meet Medicaid's asset limits, which is no more than $3,000. It does this by converting the assets into income, an income source that can then be used towards the Medicaid applicant or non-applicant spouse's income limit rules, which are currently, well, these are actually 2021. It was 2382. What did I say it is? 2289 and 371550. And as you can see, these income limits are much more generous than the asset limits are because they only keep $3,000, right? All right. So in a nutshell, here are some bullet points and pros and cons. It can convert Medicaid countable assets into non-countable income. It also is excluded from the Medicaid 5-year look-back rule. It must be set up to pay out the full amount of the annuity over the Medicaid applicant's life expectancy. Government mortality tables are used, and it must start paying out immediately. Can convert roughly up to $750,000 of countable assets into non-countable income, depending on the income allowance by the state for a non-applicant spouse, and can be funded by either qualified or non-qualified assets, depending on the state's income rules for spouses. Pros and cons. Pros, they can provide an opportunity to retain assets to your money as income in place of using it to pay for the long-term care expenses. It can be used to provide income to a non-Medicaid applicant spouse up to the spousal income limits. And the 5-year look back rule, which we didn't really talk about, but that is a big deal for these assets, which is where they're going to look back 5 years and anything that you had and made in 5 years, you can't give it away. It's yours and they're counting it. So cons, the payout schedule must be based on life expectancy, not for your whole life, but instead for mortality tables. The income payments are included with Social Security, pension, and all other income sources up to the Medicaid limits. And the portions of your assets that can be protected are limited by other income sources and Medicaid income limits. Okay, that covers all the options. Any final thoughts on that?
Nothing right now. Obviously, this is great education for people about Medicaid, about standard insurance, about hybrid insurance. So I know you're going to throw this out there, but if anyone wants to jump on a meeting with me and Brian, I will make myself available as well.
Absolutely. So on that note, this concludes the informational part of our workshop today. But before we jump into our 6-question quiz and our Q&A for it, I want to make a very special offer to everyone that is attending it, as I always do. I want to offer everyone here with us a no obligation complimentary long-term care plan analysis. And I want to take a minute to explain a little about what that entails and how you can and what you can possibly get out of it. So this is what it entails. First, there's 2 ways we can actually meet to do it. The first is online using Zoom, which is almost just like we are doing this webinar, but instead we'll both be able to see and hear each other, and it will be completely private. Second, and people still do this, folks, we're out of the pandemic. We can actually meet in person at our office in Fort Washington, PA, which is just off the turnpike. You can see it right behind me here. All right, the second part of the 2-step process would be we meet to get all the information that we'll need to do the analysis. And then we meet a second time to go over the results. Finally, what you can get out of this is a clear understanding of whether it would be worth it or not for you to implement one of the long-term care plans that we discussed today. And this is how we'll find that out. Now, quickly, I want to show you how we go about this process. So once we have all your pertinent information, we'll put it into our retirement planning software, which looks like this. These are actual screenshots from inside our software. I have to put it into it, stuff like your name, date of birth, planned retirement year, your Social Security, retirement income, pension income if it's applicable, investment account totals and potential returns, your projected tax rates now and later. Okay. Then once all that is entered into the software, then we can compare various scenarios pertaining to the different long-term care plans that I showed you earlier to either your current long-term care plan, if you have one, or your plan without a long-term care plan if you don't. Here's an example of a client of mine that we started this process with, I think it was last year. The graphs in the green are screenshots from different scenarios that we've compared. The top graph showed their current financial situation, which did not include a long-term care plan. They currently had $960,000 in assets when you included some income-based annuities that they had on top of the assets that were invested. In this scenario, they would both end up needing 3 years in a full-scale nursing facility prior to passing away. As you can see, their assets begin to deplete quickly, and they only have an 82% chance of successfully meeting their financial obligations up until their life expectancy, which in this case was 82 and 85 based on government mortality tables. Now, the middle scenario is the same as the above, except in it they transferred 150,000 of their assets from an investment annuity they had to a long-term care life solution, like the one we showed you. And as you can see, it took them from an 82% chance of financial success to a 100% chance of success up until the current life expectancies. Now, the bottom graph is the same as the middle situation where they implemented a long-term care plan, except that it also included an additional 3 years of home health care at $50,000 a year for each of them, prior to a full-scale nursing facility stay for each of them. Now, even though it does cause their situation to slip a little, they still ended up with a 97% chance of success after that. And Barry, that was because in this scenario, I used the indefinite benefits, the continuation of care benefits that you guys really the only ones that have. How many times have you seen this type of situation?
Oh, we see it every day. And I like to say that the lifetime benefit rider, the ultimate protection for your family, your legacy, and your portfolio. You're really creating the ultimate baseline against the catastrophic long-term care scenario.
At the end of the day, they took 150,000 of a $960,000 estate, moved it from one type of investment to this other type. And then that allowed them to take on 3 years each at $50,000 of home health care and 3 years each of $100,000 a year of nursing care, and still had a 97% chance of success to live to 82 and 85. So obviously we ended up actually implementing that plan for the client, and the numbers speak for themselves. Okay, so as you can see, this is why our firm advocates these alternatives as opposed to what originally it was. This is what the long-term care analysis is like. We wanted to show it to you so you had a better understanding of what you could find out as a result of it. So, as we're doing our 6-question pop quiz and our Q&A session, anyone who's interested in taking us up on this offer, all you'll need to do is click on the 30-minute meeting link that Rachel has posted in our comment box. Did you post it yet? It will be posted.
Yeah, I'm posting it now, but they're not 30-minute. You have a 15-minute and a 60-minute link.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
These are 30.
Yeah, 60-minute.
We're meeting in the middle.
I can't get it done in 30, sorry. And you can take us up on that offer. All right, now let's jump into our 6-question quiz. Everybody ready for it? I hope so. We got new questions this time. First question. When a person turns age 65, what percentage chance do they have of needing long-term care services? Remember the bullet point 1? What do we got, Rach? Anybody?
Well, let's see. Hold on. I'm getting it. Marty said 70. Yep.
70, you got it, Marty. Good job. Also, Marty, if you could put in there where you would like your gift card to. We generally email them if we can, send them by email. Number 2, how much is the current cost for a single occupant private room at a nursing care per year?
Ann got it.
All right. And good job. Put in your where you want your card to, Ann. All right, number 3. What is the current Medicaid monthly income limit amount for the applicant spouse? What is the current Medicaid monthly income limit amount for the applicant spouse?
That's a tough one.
Remember the supplemental security income amount?
Oh yeah, it looks like Marty got it. Marty got it.
All right. What'd he say?
The 914 times 3.
Exactly. $2,742. That's for 2023. Good job, Marty. Okay. Number 4 for 2023. What is the range in monthly income that Medicaid will allow the non-applicant spouse to make? The range. One or the other. Either one, where it starts or where it ends.
Up and again, Aunt Fee.
Nice, and fee. Always on it, man. Always on it. Ann's a kind of them. What'd she say?
So it was the 2289 to 3715.
That's right. Question number 5. In 2023, when a couple's assets exceed $29,724, what is the maximum amount of assets that Medicaid will allow a non-applicant spouse to keep before they will pay for care? The maximum amount.
Maximum amount. Looks like Marty got it again.
Really? What'd he say?
It's the 148,620.
Absolutely. Man, Marty on a major roll here. Him and Ann are slugging this out. Okay.
They had
Final
their handy
question.
dandy notebooks out. That's what it
Yeah, they
was.
had their handy dandy notebooks. Blue's Clues, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But we watched enough Blue's Clues around here, believe me. Final question. Name one of the 3 alternative long-term care solutions that are available to people today. Name one of the 3 alternative long-term care solutions that are available to people today. Did I bullet point that one enough? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Ann got it.
Whoo! Which one?
She said long-term care / life insurance.
Yes! Exactly. Well, Ann ought to know because she has one. Good job, Ann. Good job,
Okay.
buddy. What'd they get? 3 each?
Yeah.
Wow, we've never had anybody do that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
One dominant. No, but what's his name's not on today, I don't think, though. Who's the guy? Bob.
Yeah, Bob.
Bob usually he's quick to the trigger.
He's a regular on the
Yeah,
webinars. He likes the quiz.
he does. Yeah, so and make sure that you jot down where the cards are going to be from, Rach. Did you guys put them in there? Otherwise, I won't know
Let up, I'll
where.
go through.
And Marty, hopefully we have your email address. If you used your email address to log in, then we'll have it. If not,
Yep, I got it.
okay.
I got it. He put it in here.
Okay. All right, great. So now we're going to go to some questions and then we're going to wrap this thing up. Is there any questions we have?
See. All right, so it looks like how much in long-term coverage does the average person need?
I'm going to pass this to you, Val. What's your thoughts on this?
It's obviously situational. So every client's different. I would say a safe area to start looking is around $4,000 to $5,000 per month in benefits. Obviously, that's going to depend on where you live, what type of other supplemental income you'll have while on claim. But when you're getting quotes from carriers, anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 monthly benefit is a good place to start.
It would offset right around half, if not, 60% of what the average cost is today. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Because we're not looking to pay for the whole thing with insurance, because you're not going to be golfing, traveling, going out to dinner every night when you need to go on claim. So you're going to have that extra money on top of your long-term care insurance policy, on top of other income streams and Social Security to pay for the whole bill. We're just looking to supplement it around 50 to 70%.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting with that government, with the program that I did cut out of this because it was a little lengthy. The partnership program, these types of plans are taken into consideration for the amount that you contributed towards your long-term care needs to protect assets, right? So meaning that if you say you had a plan that contributed, say, up to, say, 200,000 worth of your long-term care expenses, then they're going to allow 200,000 of your assets to be protected for your heirs and your family, right?
That's right.
All right, Rach, what's the next one?
All right, so let's see. It says, if my husband and I have joint assets, can Medicaid still make us spend them all before they will pay for any long-term care?
Talked about this one already. Doesn't matter. Joint assets are, now if you have assets in the non-applicant spouse's name alone, say an IRA, they can't touch that. But joint assets could have $1 million, got to spend it down to $148,620. And that's if they're going to let you keep that. They'll probably likely let you keep that. But you got to spend the rest down. And so joint assets are all included into those limits.
If a non-applicant spouse has assets that are in their name alone, like an IRA, can Medicaid require those assets to be spent down?
No. Just said that, gave that one away on top of it. Answered it before.
All right, one more. Does a non-applicant spouse's personal Social Security or pension count towards the Medicaid non-applicant income limits?
Nope. But how it does work with the non-applicant spouse, we talked about, if you come up short of those limits are set because they're basically talking about how much they will allow to be taken away from the applicant spouse's benefit and brought over to the non-applicant spouse's benefit to add to. But anything they have in their own name. Now, I will have one caveat to that. There's a rule they call, who's the check? Who I think it's called, who's the check's name in? So, you heard of that, Val?
I have not. No. What
Yeah.
is that?
So, once in a while, you could have, say, an annuity that's paying, that could be it could be an IRA annuity, what have you. And they're writing a check to the non-applicant spouse. They will occasionally allow that to go.
Really?
Because the check is in the non-applicant spouse's name. Not always.
Yeah.
But you'll see that, you'll see it. You actually, who's the check in the name rule or something like that. The name is something like that. But by rule, they're generally, if it's in that non-applicant spouse, if their pension, their Social Security benefit, their IRA assets, or whatever, they can't and won't touch that. All right, is that it?
Yep, that was it.
All right, folks, that concludes our workshop for today. I just want to thank everyone who attended for being the type of people that care enough about themselves and their family to spend their precious time learning about important topics like this. I truly commend you for that. Well, folks, as we draw things down to an end here, I want to thank Regional Sales Director Bailey Hornsby of OneAmerica Life Insurance Company for being our super special expert co-host for tonight and for helping us to better understand this pretty complicated and actually somewhat in-depth topic. I just can't tell you how much I love having you on this and just dealing with you in general, Bailey. Thank you so much for coming and doing this. Buddy.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Rachel. I'm so excited that you invited me to be on this. I am always open to being on any future ones. This was very educational. I took down some notes myself. So again, thank you. And to your clients, please have the conversation with your family. It's one of the most important conversations you'll ever have.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. Really love to have you come back and do this again at some point. Appreciate it. So absolutely. So, well, folks, on behalf of my beautiful, wonderful partner in business and life, Rachel Dougherty, and myself, Brian Dougherty of PLC Financial Solutions, located in the Fort Washington, PA area, I want to remind you that if there's anything we've discussed tonight, or anything else for that matter, that you would like to discuss further with us, you can reach us at either 215-804-9708 by phone or at info@plcfs.com by email, or to make it even easier, just go to our website at plcfs.com and all our information is always there. Also, please mark Tuesday, March 28, 2023 at 7 p.m. on your calendar for our next webinar. Our topic will be what is protected investing, part 2, which we'll be doing again with our special protected investing expert from Zega Financial, Mike Puck. Remember, we do our webinars on the last Tuesday of every month. Have a great end of your month and a great March as well. And we will see you then. Good night, folks.
Night, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks again.